Love, a word we hear every day. In movies, in songs, in poetry. We grow up believing that love is about passion, romance, and finding that one special person who will complete us. But what if everything we think we know about love is an illusion? In Buddhism, love is not about possession. It is not about clinging to someone out of fear of loneliness. True love is not about wanting or needing. It is about giving. It is about understanding. It is about freeing ourselves and others from suffering. The Buddha taught that all attachments lead to suffering. When we love with attachment, we become afraid of losing, afraid of being alone, afraid of change. But love that is rooted in fear is not true love. It is a contract, a transaction. I love you as long as you make me happy. But when happiness fades, love turns into pain, disappointment, or even hatred. So, what is true love in the Buddhist way? It is not about seeking fulfillment in another person. It is about cultivating four qualities: loving kindness, compassion, joy, and equanimity. Loving kindness is wishing happiness for others, not just for ourselves. When we truly love, we do not ask, "What can I get from this person?" Instead, we ask, "How can I bring joy to this person?" Compassion is the ability to see the suffering of others and respond with a gentle heart. When we love someone, we don't just celebrate their joys, we also hold space for their pain. Love is not about fixing others. It is about walking beside them, offering warmth and understanding. Joy in love means we rejoice in the happiness of others. If we only feel happy when someone belongs to us, that is not true love. That is attachment. True love finds joy in another's happiness, even if that happiness does not include us. And finally, equanimity is balance. It is the ability to love without clinging, to care without controlling. It is the wisdom to know that nothing lasts forever, and yet to love fully in each present moment. So how can we cultivate this kind of love in our daily lives? First, we must learn to love ourselves, not in a selfish way, but in a way that allows us to be whole. If we do not understand our own suffering, how can we help others with theirs? Second, we must practice mindfulness. Every time we love with attachment, we should pause and reflect. Am I loving from a place of fear or from a place of freedom? And finally, we must expand our love beyond just one person. True love is not limited to a partner, a child, or a friend. It extends to all beings, humans, animals, even the earth itself. When we love this way, we do not suffer from loneliness because love is no longer something we seek. It is something we are. Love is not about holding on. It is about letting go. Not letting go of people, but letting go of expectations, of control, of the illusion that love is something we can possess. So today, I invite you to reflect. How do you love? Do you love with attachment or with freedom? Do you seek to take or do you seek to give? The way we love shapes our world. If we can love with wisdom, with compassion, and with a heart free from fear, then we can find a love that is not temporary, not conditional, but boundless, like the ocean, like the sky, like the nature of the Buddha himself. Have you ever wondered why love, something so beautiful, can also bring so much suffering? You meet someone, you open your heart, you give them your all. In the beginning, everything feels perfect, but then something changes. A misunderstanding, a moment of doubt, a growing distance. The warmth turns into coldness, the happiness turns into pain, and just like that, what once felt like the greatest joy becomes the deepest sorrow. Why does this happen? Why does love, which should bring us happiness, so often bring suffering instead? The Buddha taught that much of what we call love is not true love. It is attachment. When we love with attachment, we are not simply loving the other person for who they are. We are loving them for what they give us. Maybe it is validation, maybe it is a sense of security, maybe it is the feeling of being wanted. But when our love is based on desire, it becomes fragile. Because desire is never permanent. When it is fulfilled, we feel happy, but when it is not, we feel pain. Think about it. How often do we say, "I love you," but deep inside, what we really mean is, "I need you to make me happy"? How often do we hold on to someone not because we truly understand them, but because we're afraid of being alone? And yet, true love should not feel like suffering. Love should not be a cage. It should not be something that binds us or fills us with fear. True love is freeing. It is peaceful. It is open, like the sky, vast and without conditions. So how can we love without suffering? How can we love in a way that brings peace instead of pain? This is where the Buddha's teachings on the Four Immeasurables come in. These are 4 qualities that, when practiced, transform the way we love. They are loving kindness, compassion, sympathetic joy, and equanimity. Loving kindness means to love without expecting anything in return. It means to wish for the happiness of others, not just for ourselves. When we love someone, do we truly wish for their happiness, even if that happiness does not involve us? If our love is only love when we are included, then it is not pure. But if we can love in a way that says, "I want you to be happy no matter what," then we are on the path to true love. Compassion is the ability to see the suffering of others and respond with a kind heart. True love does not only celebrate joy, it also embraces sorrow. When we love someone, we do not turn away from their pain. We do not demand that they always be happy for us. Instead, we sit with them in their suffering, offering them our presence, our understanding, our patience. Love is not about fixing someone. It is about holding space for them, allowing them to be who they are without judgment. Sympathetic joy means to rejoice in the happiness of others. In attachment, we feel happy only when someone belongs to us. But in true love, we feel happy simply because they are happy. Imagine loving someone so purely that their joy brings you joy, even if you are not the reason for it. This is real freedom. This is love without chains. And finally, equanimity. This is balance, the wisdom to love without clinging. It is the understanding that everything changes. People change, situations change, feelings change, and that is okay. When we love with equanimity, we do not try to hold on too tightly. We love fully in the present, without fear of the future, because true love is not about possession, it is about presence. So the next time you love, ask yourself, am I loving with attachment, or am I loving with freedom? Am I giving love, or am I only seeking to receive it? Love should not be a source of suffering, it should be a path to peace. But to love this way, we must transform ourselves first. We must practice patience, understanding, and an open heart. Love without fear, love without conditions, love without attachment. And in that love, you will find something greater than romance, greater than passion. You will find true peace. In Buddhism, love is not about what we can take. It is about what we can give. It is not about needing, possessing, or controlling. It is about offering, freeing, and understanding. Most of us grow up believing that love is about finding someone who completes us, someone who will make us happy. But this kind of love is fragile. It depends on conditions, on how the other person treats us, on whether they stay, on whether they give us what we expect. And when those conditions change, as they always do, love turns into pain. But what if love didn't have to be this way? What if love could be a path to freedom instead of suffering? The Buddha taught that there is a different way to love, a love that does not cling, does not demand, does not create fear. This love is cultivated through the Four Immeasurables: loving kindness, compassion, sympathetic joy, and equanimity. Loving kindness, or Metta, is the foundation of true love. It is the deep and sincere wish for others to be happy, not just the people we like, not just the people who love us back, but all beings. When we practice loving kindness, we do not love because of what someone can give us. We love because we wish for their happiness, simply and purely. It is a love that expects nothing in return, a love that does not depend on conditions. Compassion, or Karuna, is love in its most tender form. It is the ability to see the suffering of others and respond with a heart that wishes to ease that suffering. It is not about fixing people or making them what we want them to be. It is about being present with them, holding space for their pain, offering understanding instead of judgment. True compassion does not turn away from suffering. It embraces it with gentleness and patience. Sympathetic joy, or mudita, is the ability to feel happiness when others are happy. It is the opposite of jealousy. In ordinary love, we often feel happy only when we are the source of someone's joy. But true love allows us to rejoice in their happiness, even when it has nothing to do with us. Imagine loving someone so deeply that their success, their peace, their laughter fills you with joy, even if you are not a part of it. That is the beauty of Mudita. And then there is equanimity, or Upekkha, the wisdom to love without attachment, without control, without fear. This does not mean we stop caring. It means we love fully in each moment, but we do not try to possess what can never be possessed. Everything in life changes. People change. Love itself changes. Equanimity allows us to love with open hands, not clenched fists. It teaches us that love is not about keeping, but about allowing. When we love with equanimity, we stop fearing loss, because we no longer see love as something that can be lost. This kind of love is liberating. It is not a cage. It is not a contract. It does not say, "I love you as long as you love me back." It does not say, "I love you as long as you make me happy." Instead, it simply says, "I love." Love, when it is true, does not hold on to people. It does not try to control them. It does not demand. It simply flows, like a river, like the wind, like the infinite compassion of the Buddha himself. And so, I ask you, how do you love? Do you love with attachment or with freedom? Do you seek to possess or do you seek to give? Compassion is the heart of true love. It is the purest expression of kindness, the deepest form of connection. But what does compassion truly look like in our daily lives, in our relationships, in the way we love? Most of us think of love as a feeling, something that happens to us when we meet the right person. But love, in the Buddhist way, is not just an emotion, it is an action. It is a way of being. And at the center of this way of being is compassion. Compassion means truly seeing another person, not as someone who exists to fulfill our needs, but as a fellow human being with their own struggles, dreams, and emotions. It means recognizing that, just like us, they have wounds that need healing. That, just like us, they have moments of doubt, fear, and sadness. But how often do we love with this kind of understanding? In many relationships, we do not love the person as they are. We love what they give us. We love them when they make us feel good, when they say the right things, when they meet our expectations. But when they disappoint us, when they are struggling, when they are not able to be who we want them to be, our love turns into frustration, resentment, or even anger. True compassion is different. True compassion means listening without judgment, forgiving without holding on to resentment, being present without expecting anything in return. Think about the last time you had an argument with someone you love. What was your focus? Were you trying to win? Were you trying to prove a point? Or were you trying to understand? In moments of conflict, most of us react with ego. We defend ourselves. We try to be right. But when we act this way, we forget something important. The person standing in front of us is not our enemy. They are another human being, struggling just as we are. Imagine if, in the middle of an argument, instead of reacting with anger, you paused and asked, "What pain is this person carrying that I cannot see? What fear is making them speak this way? How can I respond with kindness instead of pride?" Compassion transforms relationships. It turns fights into moments of healing. It turns distance into closeness. It turns fear into love. But compassion is not always easy. It requires patience. It requires humility. It requires us to set aside our own ego and truly open our hearts. And perhaps, most importantly, compassion must begin with ourselves. How can we offer kindness to others if we do not offer it to ourselves? How can we be patient with others if we are not patient with our own flaws? The Buddha taught that to love fully, we must cultivate compassion in every moment, not just for those who are kind to us, but for those who challenge us. Not just for the people we love, but for all beings, because suffering is universal. And love, true love, has no limits. So today, I invite you to reflect. How do you love? Do you love with conditions, or do you love with understanding? Do you react with pride, or do you respond with patience? A compassionate heart is not weak. It is strong, because it is not controlled by anger, by fear, by ego. It loves not because it needs something in return, but because love itself is the path. Non-attachment is often misunderstood. Many think it means indifference, a cold detachment from the world and the people we love. But this is not the truth. Non-attachment does not mean not caring. It means caring deeply, but without clinging, without the fear of losing. The Buddha taught that true love is not about possession. When we love someone, we do not try to control them, change them, or hold on to them as if they belong to us. Instead, we allow them to be free, free to grow, free to follow their own path, and free to find happiness in their own way. Imagine a love that is pure, untainted by jealousy, expectation, or fear. A love that does not demand, but simply gives. This is the love that arises from wisdom and understanding. Why do we suffer in relationships? Because we attach. We expect others to complete us, to always be by our side, to love us in the way we think they should. When they change, when they choose a different path, or when life separates us, we feel pain. But this pain does not come from love itself. It comes from attachment. What if we could love without fear? What if we could love without the need to possess? What if our greatest wish was not, I need you to stay with me, but instead, I want you to be happy wherever you are, even if it is not with me. This shift in perspective changes everything. Love transforms from something fragile and conditional into something vast and unshakable. There is no desperation, no grasping, only a deep, unconditional kindness that brings peace to both the giver and the receiver. The Buddha compared attachment to holding onto a rope that burns our hands. The tighter we cling, the more pain we feel. But when we let go, not with indifference, but with wisdom, we free ourselves. And in that freedom, we discover a love that is deeper than we ever imagined. True love is not about holding on. True love is about being present, appreciating each moment, and wishing the best for the other person, no matter what. It is a love that does not bind, but liberates. Understanding the wisdom of non-attachment and true love is one thing, but real transformation happens when we put these teachings into practice. The Buddha taught that wisdom is not merely knowing, it is living with awareness, mindfulness, and compassion in each moment. So how do we practice true love? How do we love without attachment, without fear, and without suffering? The path is simple, but it requires patience, presence, and a sincere heart. First, practice deep and active listening. So often, when someone speaks, our minds are elsewhere. We are preparing our response, judging their words, or thinking about our own experiences. But true listening is an act of love. It means being fully present, receiving the other person's words with an open heart, without interrupting, without rushing to fix or control. Just listening. In this space of presence, understanding grows. Second, practice forgiveness. Holding on to resentment is like carrying a heavy stone in our heart. We think it punishes the other person, but in reality, it only weighs us down. The Buddha said that holding on to anger is like grasping a hot coal with the intention of throwing it at someone else. You are the one who gets burned. Let go, not because the other person deserves forgiveness, but because you deserve peace. Third, cultivate loving kindness through meditation. Each day, take a few moments to send thoughts of love, peace, and happiness to yourself and to others. Begin with yourself. May I be happy. May I be free from suffering. Then extend it to loved ones. May they be happy. May they be free from suffering. And finally, extend this love even to those who have hurt you. This practice softens the heart and dissolves the barriers that separate us. Fourth, replace expectations with gratitude. Instead of focusing on what others lack or what they should do for us, appreciate them as they are. When we expect too much, we set ourselves up for disappointment. But when we shift to gratitude, every moment becomes a gift. Every interaction becomes an opportunity to cherish. And finally, learn to pause before reacting. When anger, frustration, or jealousy arises, take a deep breath. Do not let emotions control your actions. The Buddha taught that between stimulus and response, there is a space. And in that space lies our freedom. If we fill that space with mindfulness, we can choose love over anger, patience over irritation, and understanding over judgment. When we live with these practices, deep listening, forgiveness, loving kindness, gratitude, and mindfulness, our relationships begin to change. We no longer cling, we no longer grasp, we no longer demand. Instead, we love with an open hand, with a heart that is free. Love is not always smooth. No matter how deep our connection, disagreements arise. Misunderstandings happen. Words can be misinterpreted. Emotions can flare. And before we realize it, distance begins to form between us and the ones we cherish. But it is not the conflict itself that weakens relationships. It is how we handle these moments that determines their strength. The Buddha taught that anger and resentment are like holding a hot coal with the intention of throwing it at someone else. In the end, we are the ones who suffer the most. When we hold on to hurt, replaying past wounds in our minds, we are the ones who remain trapped in suffering. Yet, there is another way, a way of wisdom, of mindfulness, of compassion. When conflict arises, instead of reacting impulsively, we can pause. A single breath, deep, conscious, intentional, can change the entire outcome of a situation. In that brief moment, we shift from reacting with ego to responding with awareness. Instead of blaming, we seek to understand. We ask, what is really happening here? What is this person trying to express beneath their frustration? What pain, what fear, what longing lies beneath their words? This does not mean we tolerate harm. Buddhism is not about passivity or allowing toxic behavior to continue. It is about clarity, seeing things as they truly are. When someone crosses a boundary, we can address it firmly, yet kindly. We do not need to meet anger with anger. Instead, we can speak with wisdom, grounded in love, rather than fear. A simple truth can transform any relationship. It is not me versus you. It is us versus the misunderstanding. When we remove the illusion of separation, we see that every conflict is an opportunity to grow together. Imagine a relationship where arguments do not lead to more pain, but to deeper understanding, where disagreements are not battles to be won, but lessons to be learned. This is possible. It begins with us, with our own practice of mindfulness, with our willingness to choose peace over pride. So the next time conflict arises, take a breath. Step back, listen, not just with your ears, but with your heart. Speak, not to win, but to heal. And remember, real love is not about never fighting. It is about how we come back to each other after the fight. The highest form of love is freedom, not possession, not control, not dependency. True love is not about keeping someone close. It is about wishing them happiness, even if that happiness is not with us. We often believe that love is something we receive, something we search for in another person. But the Buddha taught us a different path. Love is not something we take. It is something we cultivate. It is something we give, not out of expectation, but but from the depths of our own wisdom and compassion. Imagine a love that is not rooted in fear, a love that does not cling, that does not need constant reassurance, that does not say, "You complete me," but instead whispers, "I wish you to be free." This is the love that liberates, the love that does not confine, but expands. When we love in this way, we release ourselves from suffering. No longer do we grasp at others, fearing their absence. No longer do we measure love by how much someone gives us in return. Instead, we love simply because love itself is a practice, a path, a way of being. But how do we cultivate such a love? Through kindness, the gentle words, the small acts of care, the willingness to see beyond ourselves and uplift those around us. Through compassion, the ability to understand the suffering of others, to hold space for their pain without judgment, to love even when it is difficult. Through wisdom, the realization that all things change, that love does not mean ownership, and that our deepest peace comes not from holding on, but from letting go. In the end, love is not about finding the right person. It is about becoming the right person, a person who loves without fear, who gives without expectation, who understands that love, at its purest, is not attachment, it is liberation.